Commander Velox-Nine adjusted his optical sensors for the third time in 5 minutes, staring at the blue marble suspended in the void before their fleet. Earth, the so-called graveyard of species, a planet so notorious that even the most battle-hardened warriors of the Galactic Council spoke its name in hushed tones. "Sir," Communications Officer Threx called out from his station, "we're receiving standard surrender protocols from the surface, same as always." Velox-Nine let out what could only be described as a laugh, though it sounded more like grinding metal than anything remotely amusing. Of course they are. These humans, they really think their little white flags and peace offerings will save them this time? The bridge of the dreadnought. Eternal silence hummed with anticipation. 47 species had tried to claim Earth over the past millennium. 47 species had failed. Not just failed, been completely obliterated. Wiped from existence so thoroughly that historians still debated whether some of them had ever existed at all. Tactical analysis, Lieutenant Corva? Velox-Nine's voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too many battles. Lieutenant Corva, a four-armed strategist from the Nexus Collective, pulled up holographic displays with fluid precision. "Sir, their defensive capabilities appear minimal. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level. Primitive by our standards. No visible spacefaring military vessels. No energy shields protecting major population centers." And yet, Velox-Nine mused, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully, 47 civilizations thought the same thing. The silence that followed was deafening. Every crew member knew the stories. The Gorvani Empire had arrived with 1 million ships, confident in their superiority. 3 days later, silence. The crystalline beings of Sector 7 had tried a subtle approach, infiltrating slowly. They lasted 6 months before nothing. Complete radio silence. "Sir," Threx interrupted, "we're getting a strange transmission from the surface. It's just one human. A female by the sound of it." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a voice emerged, smooth and oddly calm considering an alien armada was hovering above her planet. "Hello there, visitors. I'm Captain Elena Voss, representing Earth's Defense Coalition." There was a pause, then something that might have been a chuckle. "Though I suppose defense is a rather generous term, considering you could probably glass our entire planet before lunch." Several crew members exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Most species either begged for mercy or issued hollow threats. This human sounded almost amused. "I imagine you're wondering about all those other civilizations that came before you," Elena's voice continued. "The ones that just disappeared? Must be quite the mystery from your perspective." Velox-Nine leaned forward in his command chair. "Open a channel." "Channel open, sir." "Human Captain Elena Voss," Velox-Nine's voice resonated through the bridge. "You speak with surprising confidence for someone whose world is about to be claimed by the hegemony fleet." "Claimed?" Elena's laugh was genuine this time. "Oh, Commander. May I call you Commander? You really haven't done your homework, have you?" The bridge fell silent except for the subtle hum of life support systems. "Explain yourself, human." "Well, it's quite simple, really. You see, you're operating under a fundamental misunderstanding about Earth. You think it's a graveyard because 47 species have come here and vanished. You think we're the victims, the prey, the weak little mammals waiting to be harvested." Elena paused, and when she spoke again, her tone had shifted. Still calm, but with an edge that made even Velox-Nine's combat-hardened crew shift uncomfortably. "But tell me, Commander, when you find a graveyard, do you ever wonder whose blood runs in the soil? Lieutenant Corva's tactical display began flashing urgent warnings. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures emerging from everywhere. The entire planet is lighting up like a supernova." "Impossible," Velox-Nine snarled. "Their technology level is primitive." "That's what the Gorvani thought," Elena's voice cut through the bridge chatter like a blade. "And the Nexus infiltrators, and the Void Hunters, and all the rest." On the main view screen, Earth was transforming before their eyes. What had appeared to be a peaceful blue world was revealing hidden depths of technology that defied comprehension. Massive structures were rising from the oceans, energy patterns were spreading across continents like neural networks, and the very atmosphere seemed to shimmer with contained power. "You see, Commander," Elena continued conversationally, "Earth isn't a graveyard because species come here to die. Earth is a graveyard because species come here to feed us, to make us stronger, to add their knowledge, their technology, their biological advantages to our collective arsenal." Threx's voice cracked as he reported, "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting weapon systems, thousands of them. They're using technology signatures from all the missing civilizations. The Gorvani molecular disruptors, the Void Hunter phase cannons, the crystalline beings dimensional manipulators." Elena's voice took on an almost professorial tone. "Every species that's come to conquer Earth has left us a little gift. A technological inheritance, you might say." Velox-Nine's optical sensors focused with laser precision on the tactical display. Ship after ship in his fleet was being targeted by weapon systems that shouldn't exist, operated by a species that barely had faster-than-light travel just moments ago. 47 civilizations, Elena continued, each one convinced they were the predators, each one wrong. "Do you know what we call this, Commander? Evolution, adaptation, survival of the fittest taken to its logical conclusion." "Impossible," Velox-Nine repeated, but his voice lacked conviction now. "Humans are known throughout the galaxy as primitive, emotional, chaotic." "Emotional?" Elena's laugh was sharp enough to cut atmosphere. "Commander, what do you think drives evolution? Anger at being hunted, fear of extinction, love for our children who deserve to see tomorrow, hatred for those who would take that from us." The bridge crew watched in growing horror as their fleet's own weapons began turning against them. Their ships' systems were being hacked, overridden, consumed by some sort of adaptive technology that learned and integrated faster than their defensive protocols could respond. "You call us chaotic." Elena's voice was growing colder, more focused. "But chaos is just order that you don't understand. And, Commander, there's a lot about humans that you don't understand." "Fall back!" Velox-Nine shouted to his fleet. "All ships, emergency jump, now!" "Oh, I'm afraid that's not going to work," Elena said pleasantly. "You see, we've been studying your jump drives since you entered the system. Fascinating technology, by the way. We'll be sure to put it to good use." On the tactical display, every ship in the hegemony fleet showed the same status. Jump drives offline, weapon systems compromised, life support being selectively targeted. "How?" Velox-Nine's voice was barely a whisper. "How do we do it? Or how do we live with ourselves afterward?" Elena's tone suggested she was genuinely curious which question he meant. "The how is simple, Commander. We adapted. We learned. We evolved. Every species that came to destroy us instead made us stronger. Every weapon turned against us became a weapon we could turn against others." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Elena's face was visible to the entire bridge crew. She was younger than Velox-Nine had expected, with brown hair tied back in a practical ponytail and eyes that seemed far older than her apparent years. She was standing in what looked like a command center, but the technology visible behind her was an impossible fusion of dozens of different civilizations' designs. But the how we live with ourselves, that's more complicated, Elena continued, studying Velox-Nine's face through the screen. See? We don't enjoy this, Commander. We don't take pleasure in adding another species to our collection. But we learned a long time ago that the universe is full of civilizations that view other species as resources to be harvested. She gestured to something off-screen, and the tactical display showed detailed schematics of every ship in the hegemony fleet, down to the molecular level. So we became very, very good at harvesting right back. "You're monsters," Lieutenant Corva whispered, all four of her arms trembling as she watched her ship's systems being systematically dissected by technologies that shouldn't exist. Elena's expression softened slightly. "You know, Lieutenant, that's exactly what the Void Hunters called us, right before they realized their mistake. The thing is, we never wanted to be monsters. We just wanted to be left alone." She stood up from her chair, and the camera followed her as she walked toward what appeared to be a massive viewing window. Outside, other humans were visible, working with calm efficiency at control stations that seemed to blend organic curves with mechanical precision. But the galaxy wouldn't leave us alone. Species after species came to our little blue world, convinced they were the apex predators, convinced we were just another resource to be claimed. Elena turned back to face the screen, and her smile was neither cruel nor kind. It was simply practical. So we adapted. We learned to be the predators instead of the prey. We learned to take what we needed to survive. And most importantly, we learned that, in a universe full of species trying to consume each other, it's better to be the consumer than the consumed. Velox-Nine found his voice again, though it came out as more of a growl. "What do you want from us?" "Want?" Elena tilted her head as if the question surprised her. "Commander, this isn't about what we want. This is about what we need. And right now, we need your technology, your biological adaptations, your knowledge of the galaxy beyond our little corner of space." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Don't worry, though. It won't hurt for long. We've gotten quite efficient at the integration process. Most of your crew won't even realize what's happening until it's over." "Integration?" Threx's voice was barely audible. "Oh, yes," Elena nodded pleasantly. "See? That's the real secret about Earth, gentlemen. We're not just a graveyard. We're a nursery. Every species that comes here doesn't just die. They become part of something larger, something that combines the best aspects of every civilization that's ever tried to conquer us." The bridge shuddered as something clamped onto the hull of the URP. Eternal silence. Through the viewports, crew members could see sleek, organic-looking vessels attaching to their ship like antibodies surrounding a virus. "The humans you detected on the surface," Elena continued conversationally, "pure human DNA hasn't existed on Earth for about 300 years. We're something new now, something better, a fusion of every species that thought they could claim us." Velox-Nine's tactical mind was racing, trying to find some way out of this impossible situation. "You're lying. The Galactic surveys showed human populations, human cities, human technology." Elena's laugh was genuinely delighted this time. "Oh, Commander, you really think we'd show you our real cities? Our actual technology? No, no, no. What you saw was the equivalent of a spider's web. Pretty, harmless-looking, designed to attract prey. The hull shuddering intensified, and Velox-Nine could hear sounds that no ship's hull should make. Organic sounds. Growing sounds. The real Earth is about 6 miles underground. Has been ever since the first few species taught us that the surface was too vulnerable. We learned to dig, to hide, to create perfect replicas that would fool even the most advanced sensors. She gestured again, and the main screen split to show multiple views of what Earth really looked like beneath the surface. Vast underground cities that stretched for thousands of miles, powered by fusion reactors that bore the hallmarks of a dozen different civilizations. Transportation networks that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Agricultural centers that grew food using techniques that defied physics, as Velox-Nine understood it. Every species that came before you contributed something to our survival. The Gorvani taught us molecular manipulation. The Void Hunters showed us how to phase between dimensions. The crystalline beings, well, they taught us how to think in ways that transcend individual consciousness. Elena's eyes seemed to focus directly on Velox-Nine, and for a moment he felt as though she was looking not just at him, but through him, seeing every thought and memory he'd ever had. And now, Commander, you're going to teach us about hegemony fleet tactics, your faster-than-light communications, and… She smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Velox-Nine had ever seen. Your knowledge of where the next species is likely to come, looking for the easy conquest of Earth. The organic sounds from the hull were getting louder, closer. Through the bridge's main entrance, Velox-Nine could see corridors that no longer looked like the ship he'd commanded for decades. The walls were shifting, changing, becoming something that was part machine, part organism, and entirely alien. "Please," Lieutenant Corva whispered, "we have families, children. They don't know about this mission." Elena's expression softened again, and for a moment she looked almost human. Almost like the primitive species the galactic databases claimed lived on Earth. "I know," she said gently, "and they'll be safe. We don't attack those who don't attack us. Your families will receive word that your fleet was lost in a navigation accident near a black hole. They'll mourn you, honor your memory, and live their lives in peace." She paused, studying each face on the bridge with what might have been sympathy. Unless, of course, they decide to come looking for revenge, in which case? Elena shrugged, and the gesture was both apologetic and absolute. "Well, the cycle continues." The bridge doors dissolved, not opening so much as simply ceasing to exist. What came through wasn't quite human, but it wore human faces with human expressions of calm professionalism. They moved with the coordination of a hive mind, but spoke with individual voices that carried distinct personalities. "Don't be afraid," one of them said in a voice that might have once belonged to a Gorvani warrior. "The integration is actually quite pleasant. You'll retain your memories, your personalities, even your ability to think independently. You'll just belong to something larger." Another figure, this one bearing features that suggested Void Hunter ancestry, nodded agreement. The first few species were terrified of losing themselves, but consciousness isn't diminished by joining with others. It's expanded, enhanced, improved. Velox-Nine tried to reach for his sidearm, but found that his hand wouldn't obey his commands. The ship itself was somehow preventing any hostile action. "How many?" he managed to ask through gritted teeth. "How many species have you consumed?" Elena's voice came through the ship's speakers, seeming to emanate from the walls themselves. "Consumed is such an ugly word, Commander. We prefer integrated. And the answer is 47 before you. soon to be 48. But the galaxy thinks Earth is a graveyard, Threx whispered. They think species just vanish here. And that's exactly what we want them to think, Elena replied. As long as they see Earth as a graveyard, they'll keep sending their most ambitious civilizations to claim it. And we'll keep growing stronger. One of the hybrid beings approaching Velox-Nine smiled, and it was an expression that combined human warmth with something entirely inhuman. Every species brings something unique to the collective. The hegemony's tactical precision, your resource management systems, your interstellar logistics networks. But mostly, another added, we need your maps, your knowledge of where to find the next species that thinks they can conquer Earth. Velox-Nine felt something touch his mind, gentle but inexorable. Memories began surfacing unbidden. Fleet positions, supply lines, the locations of hegemony colonies, the weak points in their defenses. No, he growled, trying to force the intrusion back. I won't betray my people. You're not betraying them. Elena's voice was patient, understanding. You're protecting them. Every species that learns about Earth and chooses not to attack it gets to live in peace. It's only the ones who come here as conquerors that join our collective. The mental pressure increased. Not painful, but absolutely irresistible. Velox-Nine could feel his thoughts being catalogued, organized, added to some vast database of galactic knowledge. Besides, Elena continued, what makes you think your people would be worse off as part of something greater? Ask Lieutenant Corva how she feels about spending her existence serving an empire that views other species as resources to be harvested. Despite herself, Corva found her voice. I don't want to die. And you won't. One of the hybrid beings assured her gently, death is the end of consciousness. What we offer is the expansion of consciousness. You'll still be you, Lieutenant. You'll just also be part of us. Through the ship's viewports, Velox-Nine could see the rest of his fleet undergoing the same process. Ships that had been the pride of the hegemony were transforming, becoming something new, something that combined the best features of dozens of different civilizations' technologies. The beautiful thing about integration, Elena's voice was growing fainter as Velox-Nine's consciousness began to expand beyond the boundaries of his individual mind, is that every species thinks they're losing something, but consciousness isn't a finite resource that gets divided when shared. It's an infinite resource that grows when combined. Velox-Nine tried to hold on to his anger, his fear, his sense of individual identity. But as his mind touched the vast network of consciousness that Earth had become, he realized something that shocked him to his core. He wasn't disappearing. He was becoming more than he'd ever been alone. The last thought he had as Commander Velox-Nine of the Hegemony Fleet was a simple recognition. Elena had been right. They hadn't come to Earth as conquerors. They'd come as the next course in humanity's endless feast of evolution. And as his consciousness merged with the collective, expanded beyond the limitations of individual thought, touched minds that had once belonged to species from across the galaxy. Velox-Nine found himself smiling. After all, who wouldn't want to be part of something greater than themselves? The graveyard had claimed another species. But the interesting thing about graveyards, as any gardener knows, is that they make excellent soil for new growth. 3 standard galactic months after the Hegemony Fleet's navigation accident, Captain Elena Voss stood in the observation deck of what had once been the Eternal Silence. The ship bore little resemblance to its original design now. Where angular hegemony engineering had once dominated, flowing curves and organic integration created something entirely new, something better. Status report, Velox, Elena said, turning to address the being who had once commanded this very vessel. The entity that responded still carried traces of Velox-Nine's original appearance, but enhanced. His optical sensors now processed light across 17 different spectrums. His combat-hardened exoskeleton had been reinforced with metallurgy techniques learned from 6 different civilizations. Most importantly, his mind now carried the accumulated tactical knowledge of 48 species. "Integration complete across all vessels, Captain," Velox replied, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't existed before. "The hegemony's quantum communication networks are now fully accessible. We have detailed maps of 732 inhabited systems." Elena nodded approvingly. "Any immediate threats?" 3 species are currently planning expeditions to Earth, Threx reported from the navigation station. The former, communications officer, now managed information flows across dimensional barriers. His consciousness expanded to process data streams that would have overwhelmed his original neural pathways. The Obsidian Collective, the Stellar Dominion, and something called the Unity of Spheres. Timeline? 6 months for the Obsidian Collective. They're mobilizing a war fleet based on intercepted hegemony intelligence. 18 months for the Stellar Dominion. They're taking a more cautious approach. The Unity of Spheres. Threx paused, consulting data flows that existed partially outside normal space-time. Unknown. Their mathematics operate on principles we haven't encountered before. Elena smiled, and it was the same expression that had terrified Velox-Nine just months earlier. Excellent. 3 more opportunities for growth. She walked to the center of the observation deck, where a holographic display showed Earth as it truly existed now. The surface maintained its deceptive appearance of a primitive world, but the display revealed layer upon layer of reality beneath. Underground cities that spanned continents. Manufacturing centers that operated in folded space to maximize efficiency. Research facilities where the combined knowledge of 48 civilizations pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Lieutenant Corva, how are our new citizens adapting? The 4-armed strategist materialized beside Elena, her form now enhanced with neural interfaces that connected directly to Earth's vast computational networks. Remarkably well, Captain. The hegemony's hierarchical mindset translated easily to our collective structure. They're particularly gifted at resource optimization and long-term strategic planning. And their families? Mourning appropriately. The Hegemony Council has already commissioned monuments to the brave souls lost in the Void Storm incident. Several colonies have named their primary spaceports after members of the fleet. Elena's expression softened slightly. This was always the most difficult part of the integration process. Not the absorption of new knowledge or the enhancement of collective capabilities, but the careful management of grief among those left behind. Any signs of investigation beyond the official reports? None, Corva assured her. The Hegemony's own intelligence services confirmed the black hole activity in that sector. As far as the galaxy is concerned, 4,800 brave warriors simply encountered a natural phenomenon too powerful to survive. Good. Elena turned back to the holographic display, zooming in on various sections of the galactic map now available to them. Velox, what's your assessment of our 3 incoming visitors? The former Hegemony commander studied the data streams with an analytical precision that combined his original tactical training with the enhanced processing power of the collective. The Obsidian Collective will arrive, expecting a traditional conquest. Scenario: they favor overwhelming force and rapid subjugation. Standard approach: orbital bombardment, followed by ground occupation. Predictable, Elena mused. And the Stellar Dominion? More sophisticated. They've studied the disappearances, and develop theories about some sort of defensive system. They'll likely attempt reconnaissance in force, probing for weaknesses before committing to full invasion. Interesting. That suggests they've learned something from the previous failures. And the unity of spheres? Velox's enhanced consciousness interfaced directly with the collective's analytical engines, processing possibilities across multiple dimensional frameworks. Unknown variables, Captain. Their mathematical approach to reality suggests they may perceive threats and opportunities in ways we haven't encountered. They could prove challenging. Elena's smile widened. Challenging is good, Velox. Challenges help us grow. She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show Earth's current defensive capabilities. What the display revealed would have been incomprehensible to the civilizations that had first attempted to conquer the planet. Weapon systems that operated across 17 dimensions. Shields that existed partially outside normal space-time. Manufacturing facilities that could convert raw matter into whatever form was needed using techniques borrowed from species that had transcended physical existence. The Obsidian Collective will provide us with their matter compilation technology, Elena continued, studying the tactical projections. The Stellar Dominion's reconnaissance techniques will enhance our intelligence-gathering capabilities, and the unity of spheres will teach us mathematics we haven't imagined, Threx completed, his enhanced consciousness already modeling the possibilities. Exactly. Elena turned to address the bridge crew, though crew was perhaps too limited a term for beings who now existed across multiple levels of reality simultaneously. Begin preparations for our guests. Standard protocols. Maintain the surface illusion. Prepare integration facilities, and ready the welcome committees. Captain, Corva interjected, the unity of spheres presents unique challenges. Their mathematical approach to reality suggests they may be able to perceive our true nature before arriving in the system. Elena considered this, her consciousness briefly touching the vast computational networks that existed beneath Earth's surface. Somewhere in those networks, the accumulated knowledge of 48 civilizations was being processed, analyzed, and synthesized into new understanding. Then we'll have to be more creative with our approach, she decided. What do we know about their philosophical frameworks? They view reality as a series of mathematical equations that can be solved or optimized, Velox reported. Their entire civilization is organized around the principle that existence itself is a problem to be solved through proper calculation. Mathematicians, then. Elena's expression became thoughtful. They'll expect logical solutions to logical problems. What they won't expect is a problem that redefines itself while they're trying to solve it. She paused, interfacing directly with the collective consciousness that Earth had become. Across the planet, millions of enhanced minds considered the challenge. The Gorvani contributed their expertise in molecular-level deception. The Void Hunters offered techniques for existing in multiple phases of reality simultaneously. The crystalline beings shared methods for thinking in non-linear dimensional frameworks. We'll show them exactly what they expect to see, Elena announced, but we'll change the underlying mathematical constants while they're observing. Let them try to solve an equation where the numbers themselves are evolving. Elegant, Threx approved. A mathematical trap disguised as a mathematical puzzle. More than that, Elena corrected. A mathematical puzzle that teaches them our mathematics while they're trying to solve it. By the time they realize what's happening, they'll already be thinking in ways that make integration not just possible, but inevitable. The observation deck's holographic display shifted again, now showing real-time feeds from across the galaxy. The Obsidian Collective's war fleet was already under construction. Massive vessels designed for planetary siege warfare. The Stellar Dominion's reconnaissance ships were being equipped with sensor arrays that incorporated lessons learned from 47 previous failures. And somewhere in the mathematical dimensions that the unity of spheres called home, calculations were being performed that might actually pose a genuine challenge to Earth's collective intelligence. 6 months, 18 months, and unknown, Elena summarized. That gives us time to prepare properly. Velox, I want complete tactical analyses of all 3 civilizations. Use our new hegemony intelligence networks to gather everything available. Already in progress, Captain. The hegemony's spy networks were extensive. We now have detailed information on military capabilities, social structures, psychological profiles, and resource distributions for thousands of civilizations. Threx, coordinate with our deep space monitoring stations. I want advance warning the moment any of these fleets enter our detection perimeter. Understood, Captain. Our enhanced sensor networks now extend across multiple dimensions. Nothing approaches Earth without our knowledge. And Corva, begin developing integration protocols for each species. The Obsidian Collective's hive mind structure will require different techniques than the Stellar Dominion's individualistic hierarchy. As for the unity of spheres, mathematical seduction, Corva completed with what might have been amusement. Show them equations beautiful enough that they'll want to become part of them. Elena nodded approvingly. This was why the integration process worked so well. Each species contributed not just their knowledge and technology, but their unique perspectives on existence itself. The collective that Earth had become wasn't just stronger than any individual civilization. It was more creative, more adaptable, more capable of finding solutions that no single species would have considered. There is one other matter, Captain, Velox said, his enhanced consciousness accessing data streams that existed in quantum superposition. Our analysis of galactic communication patterns suggests that word of the disappearances is beginning to spread beyond military channels. Some civilian populations are starting to question the official explanations. Elena's expression remained calm, but her consciousness touched the collective's vast analytical networks. This was a development they'd anticipated, but hoped to delay for several more centuries. Specifics? Academic researchers on 17 worlds have begun publishing papers about statistical anomalies in interstellar exploration. A few journalists are asking uncomfortable questions about the failure rate of expeditions to this sector. Nothing approaching the truth, but seeds of suspicion that could grow into actual investigation? Elena finished. How long before this becomes a genuine problem? Conservative estimate? 50 years before enough evidence accumulates to cause serious inquiry. Optimistic estimate? 200 years, if we manage the information flow carefully. Elena walked to the observation deck's main viewport, looking out at the stars that held thousands of civilizations, most of them unaware that their galaxy's greatest predator lived on a small blue world they'd never heard of. Then we have time, she decided, but we'll need to start considering long-term strategies. Eventually, the galaxy will realize what Earth really is. When that happens, Threx interjected, we'll be ready. 48 civilizations worth of knowledge, technology, and tactical expertise. By the time they figure out the truth, they won't be able to stop us even if they unite every remaining species in the galaxy. Perhaps, Elena mused, or perhaps we'll find something better than conquest. The bridge crew's enhanced consciousnesses all focused on their captain with intense curiosity. This was the first time Elena had ever suggested an alternative to the integration cycle that had defined Earth for the past millennium. Better, Captain? Corva asked. Elena smiled, and it was an expression that combined human warmth with the accumulated wisdom of 48 different species' approaches to existence. Think about it. We've spent 1,000 years integrating civilizations that came to conquer us. But what happens when we encounter civilizations that don't? What happens when we find species that approach us with curiosity instead of aggression? With offers of cooperation instead of demands for submission? The collective consciousness that had once been dozens of separate species considered this possibility, with millions of enhanced minds working in parallel. We've never encountered such a species, Velox pointed out. Not yet, Elena agreed. But the galaxy is vast, and consciousness takes many forms. Somewhere out there are civilizations that have learned to coexist rather than consume. When we find them, she paused, her consciousness interfacing with the vast computational networks that processed the accumulated knowledge of their integrated civilizations. When we find them, we might discover that there are better ways to grow than through integration. Ways that preserve the uniqueness of individual species while still creating something greater than the sum of parts. Cooperation instead of absorption, Threx mused. Alliance instead of integration. Exactly, but until then, Elena gestured toward the holographic display showing the 3 approaching fleets. We continue to be what the galaxy has made us, the predator that feeds on predators, the graveyard that grows stronger with each burial. She turned back to face her enhanced crew, beings who had once been enemies but were now something unprecedented in galactic history. Prepare for our guests, everyone. The Obsidian Collective, the Stellar Dominion, and the Unity of Spheres are about to learn the same lesson that 48 civilizations learned before them. Which is? Corva asked, though her enhanced consciousness already knew the answer. Elena's smile was gentle, patient, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. That when you whisper your final question into the void, whose blood runs in my veins? The answer is always the same. She gestured to encompass the transformed ship, the enhanced crew, the vast planetary collective that Earth had become. Everyone's. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that their galaxy had already changed forever. Somewhere among those stars, 3 civilizations were preparing for what they believed would be routine conquests of a primitive world. They had no idea they were about to become the next ingredients in humanity's recipe for evolution. And in the depths of Earth's vast underground cities, 48 species worth of consciousness smiled with 1,000,000 different faces, all sharing the same patient anticipation. The graveyard was always hungry, and the feast was about to continue.